It is our favorite time of the week, time for hashtag Rising Qs, where we answer your questions. All right, Saagar, what's first?
Number one from Lucas Bateman. He says, where does the conversation on national debt go from here? Does the, quote, how can we afford it hold any argument whatsoever after these IMO necessary major federal payment and stimuluses? Great question, Lucas. No, it's always been a farce.
It's always been a con.
Yeah.
Always.
Look, of course,
there's a limit to
there's
these
some,
sure.
But that doesn't mean that, in times of national crisis, the fact that we can always find the money, that we can always find the mechanism, just shows you that it's always more a matter of political will than it is about spending.
Completely.
That is the truth.
That's the thing. Never forget, they could have been helping average Americans all this time. There was always money for massive corporate tax cuts. There was always money for massive war spending. No one ever said, how can you pay for that? It's only when working class citizens stand to benefit from, healthcare, maybe help with childcare, or, students who have massive student loan burdens, all of these things. There was never money for that. Well, there were money for all. It was always a con.
Yeah.
Republicans used it when Democrats were in power to keep them from accomplishing anything. Democrats stupidly would buy into it. People like Joe Biden, who would, I support the balanced budget amendment. Let's cut Social Security and Medicare, et cetera, et cetera. Obama and Biden went to the table for this grand bargain with Republicans time and time again, trying to get cuts to Social Security so they would buy into it hook, line, and sinker. Then Republicans would come into office and they'd be like, that's cute that we used to care about deficits. Now we're going to blow up the war spending. Now we're going to, cut taxes for major corporations and rich people and explode the deficit and the debt because in reality, we don't actually care about it. All of this farce is completely exposed.
Yep,
now,
there we go.
You can see my radar. I did this earlier this week for more information. All right.
What's the second one?
Second one, hold on, let me pull it up. Here we go. From George, why is Tulsi endorsing Cold War hawk and Senate architect of the Iraq War, Joe Biden? Excellent question. I had complicated feelings about this. On the one hand, I liked that Tulsi endorsed Joe because it basically owned all of the dumb people who said that she wasn't really a Democrat, that she was a Russian plant and an operative, and she was going to run Spoiler, and Jonathan Chait and Neera Tan, and all these people had to eat their words. And it exposed how hollow and vacuous all their criticism and disingenuous all of their criticism of her was, because the moment that she got in line with their anointed candidate, they're like, she's a patriot. She's amazing. Thank you for serving our country. So all of she's an Assad stooge and toady and apologist for dictators, whatever, it was all just about her not towing the line. So I like that part. On the other hand, look, I think, I have a lot of respect for her as an anti-establishment and courageous voice and figure. Her positions and her political positioning is obviously closer to Bernie Sanders. So I wish she would have waited or backed Bernie or something like that on the other hand, but I do like how it kind of owned the libs.
Yeah, it certainly did own them. I'm generally in the same boat. Again, it's politics. I get it. You have to endorse whomever is up at the top. And that's ultimately what she did. I don't think for a second she's ever going to compromise her principles, so I'm not as troubled by it.
Very true.
Especially because it comes at this moment, whenever he is and in the middle of a national crisis, it just seems like it would make sense.
I thought her explanation of it was good. Of basically look, the primary is effectively over. Yeah. We're in the middle of this crisis, and I always said I was going to, and she did. Yeah. Every time they asked her, I always said I was going to back the Democratic nominee. That's effectively Joe Biden at this point, so here we are.
There it is.
Makes sense. All right, what's the last one?
Last question from Uncle Jeff. What are the hurdles to forming a viable third party in the U.S.? Oh, Jeff, do you have several hours?
Yeah, many.
Legally, look, it's a plutocracy. That's the way that it's generally worked. I have always said, and I think you believe this too, that the easiest way to do it is to form your own coalition and take over a party rather than trying to run on the outside. But hey, we're in unprecedented times, so maybe anything's possible.
Can I will say, and I've always thought that in the book that I wrote, Reversing the Apocalypse, I weighed the arguments of do you go third party or do you try to take over one of the existing parties? And it has always been the case in modern history that it's been more effective and more achievable to take over one of the parties. I think that's still the case. But we do live in such a radically shifting and evolving moment. I do think if there was ever space for a worker-centered third party,
maybe it's now.
It might be now because, my concern is that the Democratic Party is almost too far gone. It's so realigned itself around these affluent suburbanites and their view and interest of the world that it's going to take a lot to reclaim that party and realign it. So I think it's a monumental task. I believe that it's still probably the more achievable goal at this point, because party loyalty and just like automatic tick the line is so powerful. If you think about it just structurally from a math perspective, if you go into an election and as an independent or third party person, you literally have to build one vote at a time from zero, right? Earn literally every vote. Whereas you start off with going against a Democrat or Republican where they've got, at least 30% who are just going to automatically check the box no matter who is running in that slot. So you're starting at this massive deficit, not to mention, look, you'll be completely demonized as a spoiler. You will be hated by everyone in this town, by everyone in the media. And unfortunately, we saw how effective the media was at smearing any threat to their power in partnership with the Democratic establishment this time around. When they all coalesced around Joe Biden, that was like game over.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So they still have power, unfortunately.
They certainly do. That's why, I've always I think a takeover is better than third party. But again, maybe we live in such crazy times that is possible. Yeah,
I will tell you, it's something I've been thinking really hard about lately, and so I appreciate you all's perspective on this too. Leave it in the comments so I can see your arguments for and against as well. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, and we will see you back here tomorrow.